Hype Man, Raj Nation, the GOAT to market. From Hype HQ in Chicago, Illinois, Startup Hype Man presents the GOAT to Market Show. What's up, everyone? I am your host, Raj Nation, the founder and chief pitch artist of Startup Hype Man. This podcast is where we bring you founders, company leaders, and creatives who are building it, who are doing it, who have been there and done that. And they pull back the curtain on their go-to-market strategies so that you can build a venture that you love and become the GOAT of your industry. Want first listen on episodes before anyone else? Subscribe to our newsletter at startuphypeman.com. You will get alerts every Sunday morning when we release new episodes. All right, let's hear how today's guest is becoming the GOAT. Ladies and gentlemen, making her way to the microphone from Boston, Massachusetts, and currently residing in London, England. She is the founder of House of Bold. Please welcome Erin Balsa.
Thank you so much for that intro. And I don't know how you do that with a straight face, because I surely could not do that.
She is Erin Balsa, the founder and chief picky editor, which we'll get into that later on, of the House of Bold. What is House of Bold? Well, they are the go-to company for when your content needs mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Maybe you've got a unique point of view. You've got some SMEs on your team. Maybe you're trying to get your content strategy off the ground for your B2B SaaS company. Well, House of Bold is here to save and to rescue you from the calamity you're probably about to endure, because when you're getting your SaaS into the market, content is probably one of the biggest drivers of success, and writing content on your own is not easy if you're not a natural writer, and creating a content strategy is even harder if you're not a natural writer. House of Bold steps in and puts the bold behind your SaaS. Erin herself has written in the past for companies like HubSpot, Drift, G2, Monday.com, and she's taken a lot of the learnings from those companies, and she's applying it now with House of Bold to early stage SaaS companies that are getting into market. Companies like Intelum, People AI, Survey CTO, basically setting them up from day one with the content strategy that's going to allow them to scale into those bigger brands over time. Erin started House of Bold just a few years ago in 2022. She's already put up a great client roster under her name to that point. And in this process, she does something that I really admire, because it's really hard to do this and it's really easy to do it poorly. And the topic today is creating content that drives leads. Erin, once again, welcome to the show. Content that drives leads. Why is this on your mind? Why is this important to you?
Well, first, before we talk about leads, I want to just make it clear that most of the work I do is with early stage companies who they might have a freemium product or a free trial, but they always have a sales team, right? So there's some sort of sales motion. They might also have a partner-led sales motion as well. So thinking in terms of leads, I just want to say, I'm not talking about icky leads. Icky leads is when, you create some crappy ebook, you throw it behind a gate, somebody puts in their email, and then you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, let's, enrich their data and let's reach out to them. No, nobody wants to be reached out to just because they, downloaded some crappy ebook out of curiosity. I'm not talking about driving those kinds of leads. I'm talking about people with actual intent. So I like to think of leads in terms of someone who raised their hand to talk to sales, someone who entered the free trial of their free will. They actually have some sort of intent. And those are the kind of leads that I like to help companies create, people that have actual buying intent.
All right. So we're going to talk about that buying intent a whole lot more. Before we go into that, let's learn a little bit more about Erin. Now, Erin, I intentionally wore the shirt I'm wearing today. I don't know if you can tell, but it's...
yes, of course. I noticed it already.
Biggie Smalls on it.
Thank you.
And, on your website, you've got a photo there where you're holding a coffee mug that says something like, I run on Biggie Smalls and coffee.
Yeah.
Favorite Biggie song and why?
Warning, because I have lots of happy memories of being a young Erin and bouncing on couches and just like rapping my heads off with my friends and being ridiculous. So it just puts me in a happy mood.
I like that. I like that. Um, is Biggie the best rapper of all time?
I mean, he's definitely notorious, wink, wink. I don't know if I could say best because there are a lot of really amazing rappers out there. I just love him. I mean, I'm from the East Coast originally, and, he's just bomb. He's just badass.
Does this make you immediately anti-Tupac?
No, no, I can't say that. I also love Tupac. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, so I grew up with a lot of Biggie and a lot of Tupac too. So, I love them both. I don't discriminate against West Coast rappers.
All right. So, East Coast, growing up in the Boston area, I think where someone is from actually plays a big role into their worldview. So, what do you feel like the East Coast culture how do you feel like the East Coast culture has shaped your worldview?
Wow, what a great question. No one's ever asked me that, and I agree. So for me, it's come crystal clear as I've gotten older, been working at more companies, been exposed to more work environments, and since I met my husband, who's from Portugal, people from the East Coast, particularly the Northeast, and I'm talking like New York City, Boston, all of us up there, we talk fast, we move fast, we generally have a real sense of urgency in the workplace. So that really translates into who I am. I like to get things done. I like to get them done correctly, but also fast. Like I talk fast, I think fast, and I walk fast even. So it's funny when you go to Portugal or see me with my husband, they just kind of meander along and it's much more relaxed and they take like a long hour and a half lunch during the workday. And I don't know. I think of all the years that I spent eating my lunch at my desk because I was like, I got to get this done. Like I got to get to inbox 0. I got to leave and get home to my kids. And that's just kind of that energy is just kind of part of who I am. And I think a lot of that is because of where I was raised and kind of how that shaped my personality.
And the slow culture of Europe is something I actually quite admire because
Totally.
I don't think I innately have it. Now I'm from and I live in Chicago, which is Midwest, which is slower than the East Coast, but still part of American culture, which is faster than Europe.
Yep.
And being an entrepreneur, I tend to have adopted more of the fast mindset. The casual nature of European culture is something that I've been trying to learn more from because there's a lot of value in slowing down and maybe taking time to eat lunch.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for eating lunch at your desk at all because I'm not that person anymore. I definitely have forced myself to slow down a lot the older I've gotten. This year, I'm only working 3 days a week. I'm working 24 hours. I only have a nanny for 24 hours. So when she leaves, that's it. Like I just can't keep working like I used to when I was younger. So I'm not advocating for that. I'm just being real. That's who I am at the core. That's how I lived my life for many years. I always say there are seasons for grinding, seasons for resting. There were many years and seasons where I was grinding, and I'm not exactly resting, but I'm definitely not grinding these days. I'm definitely trying to take it a lot easier. And, I also aspire to become more zen. I talk about this a lot, with my friends. I don't talk about it as much as I maybe should online, but I'm always like on a journey to find that balance, to find that inner peace and that zen and that calm. And whenever I do go to Portugal, which is quite often, I always leave feeling like I need to live here. This is such a zen environment. It just makes me feel so good. So I'm sure someday I will eventually find that zen, but I'll always have that New England girl inside.
Well, you're always welcome to come take one of my yoga classes if you want to find
I love
zen.
that. Oh my God. I have great memories of doing like outdoor yoga at this amazing resort in Comporta, Portugal, which if you haven't been, you got to go. It's very zen.
I was in Portugal last year, but I did not go there.
Did you go to Lisbon?
Lisbon and Porto, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. So you've mentioned, the connection to Portugal with your husband being Portuguese. Does that mean you also speak Portuguese now?
Más o menos. I suck at languages. I really do. I try my best. I know a lot of words and I can string them together. And sometimes people know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they don't, but I try. And I also did take a course, like an in-person course when I was living in Lisbon, like, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago. And I was trying really hard. I have a hard time with languages. I'm sure if I was actually living there and just kind of embedded in the culture, I would pick it up a lot quicker.
Mhm.
But yeah, I try. I can string a lot of words together.
Is there anything? So then, when you're in Portugal, you said you go quite often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Portuguese being spoken around you, presumably. Is there any sort of, I guess, anything you would say you have learned from having to kind of just like listen, and you almost don't have the ability to chime in, at least in some conversations, but you're just listening to what's around you?
It's not actually the case, honestly. So when I was living there so many years ago, I would be out and about. I was freelancing from Portugal for a while. So I was out during the day going to cafes, ordering
Mm.
my coffee, trying to speak to people in Portuguese, and they would instantly answer me in English. So a lot of Portuguese people, especially in Lisbon, especially younger people, they're very proud that they can speak English. They want to practice it. And they're pretty good. So they
Yeah.
try to make your life more easy. They're kind of like, oh, look at this poor person trying to speak Portuguese. Like, let me make their life easier by speaking in English.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I don't really get a ton of opportunity to practice in that kind of a setting, as well as all of our friends there. All my kids' godparents, except for one, live in Lisbon or Greater Lisbon. And when I'm there, they're speaking in English because they all can, and they all like to get that practice and like to,
Uh-huh.
speak in English. And they're very like respectful of me and know that I would miss quite a bit of the conversation if they were just quickly speaking in Portuguese. And they're like great people. So they do speak a lot of English. Sometimes I have to say, speak Portuguese. It's okay if I miss some because I want to make their life easy too. And I know sometimes there are certain words that can escape people when they're trying to tell a story. So I don't know. It's kind of about being respectful to each other and, you know, encouraging them to speak Portuguese because I do want to listen. It's okay if I don't get it all.
From learning languages to the language of content. See that segue there?
Smooth, so smooth.
You made even smoother by the fact that I noted that it was a segue.
Yeah, so smooth.
um, so we this idea of content, you decide to create House of Bold. Originally, though, you were operating under just kind of like your name, right? Like Erin
Yeah.
Balsa content agency. Can you talk about the step to House of Bold? Because the name
Mhm.
is impactful. It is in and of itself a bold name. What was that shift?
This is going to sound kind of dumb, but it's the truth. I was going to a lot of in-person events for a period of time, and I'd always have to put on a name tag and I'd write Erin Balsa. And then it said like company, Erin Balsa. And I'm like, this is kind of awkward to be at events. And I'm like, hi, I'm Erin Balsa from Erin Balsa Content Marketing. Granted, it was great for SEO, but I wanted something that felt a bit more professional, a bit more like a brand. And who knows, like right now, it's just me. I'm a solopreneur. I work directly one-on-one with my clients, but who knows what the future will bring, right? So maybe House of Bold could grow to become something bigger than myself. Who knows? That and I wanted to reflect back to my clients, what they were all aspiring to be, which was bold. They wanted to have something unique and different and attention grabbing to say. And that's kind of who I am at the core. I mean, if you go to my homepage, you can see a giant eyeball that kind of follows you around as you interact with the page. And, I don't want to be like setting people up to think when I say bold, I think wacky, big eyeballs. That's a version of bold. That's not bold for everyone. So bold might mean having a strong point of view and saying it without fear that you're going to push some people away, right? It's just owning your point of view, being able to make assertions in a direct way without feeling the need to sugarcoat everything. People are constantly trying to, sugarcoat, tone things down, water down their
Mm-hmm.
point of view. And, that is the opposite of bold. And that is why it's one of the reasons why we see so much same generic content.
So let's go further on that. The generic content. Why do you think it is so easy to do content poorly?
Because A, People are afraid to be bold. I see this all the damn time. I mean, look at what happened with the Canva, a Hamilton wrap the other day. Canva did something bold and it 100% got the word out that they have an enterprise solution, that they've made a big pivot in their business strategy. Yeah, I mean, that's a success right there because we didn't know before. Now we know. But they're getting a lot of shade. Like there were so many articles by these big like publications written about, oh my God, Canva's marketing team is so cringe. Yeah, that's not cringe to me. I think it's really brave.
So what did they do?
So at their conference, they did a Hamilton rap, and they had people that were dancing and rapping from Canva, and then they had someone dressed up in a suit, and she was playing like a CIO, and she was like, yo, I need to design for my company, essentially. And they're like, yo, we do that. We help entire organizations design. And it's part of their shift. For the first 10 years in business, Canva was empowering any individual around the globe to design, even if they weren't a designer. And, as things happen, companies take a different, approach. And so they shifted in decade 2 to not only empowering individuals, but empowering entire organizations. I sound like I'm a Canva spokesperson. I'm not. They're not paying me to say this. But now they're empowering complete organizations to be a designer, which is pretty cool, right? So they want to get the message out. I've been a Canva customer forever. I pay for it out of my own pocket. I didn't know they had an enterprise tool. Now I do. But everyone's like piling on them and like saying that's so cringe. I think it's bold. And I think that so many people are afraid to be cringe. They're afraid to end up, the latest story in some big publication. They're afraid to end up on LinkedIn Lunatics. They're just afraid to try new things, be different, say things that, people might not get. But I encourage it. Like, you don't have to necessarily do Hamilton. There's a lot of more toned down ways to be bold. You could be bold by publishing original research in which you survey an audience on a topic that you care about. And then you take that data and you do a lot of data storytelling. So you're taking that original data and you're sharing your original insights. You're like, hey, this is what the data means for you, and this is why you should care. That can be bold because so many companies don't even do that.
I got to go back and see this Hamilton thing because as a Hamilton expert and super fan and someone who's even created his own remixes of Hamilton tracks in the past, I have a feeling I would like it. But I guess I've got to watch to see how they execute it because the idea can be good, but if the execution is kind of like, people will pile on quickly and not respect it.
I think everyone has their own level of taste. Everyone has their own level of like what's good, what's not good. It's kind of like what is good content, right? It's subjective. Yeah. It's like art. What is good art? It's subjective. Half the art I have in my house, I think is amazing. You might come over and think it's ugly and vice versa, right? So I don't know. It's kind of like just owning what you think is good and what you think is good execution. And the real magic is A, do people know about the thing you want them to know about? And B, did it continue to attract your people? Because you don't need to attract all the people. And I think that's something people forget. It's okay to not, it's okay to turn off some people. Never mind not attract. Like it's totally okay unless your TAM is literally everyone, which is not.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting point, right? There's this worry you're going to turn away some people, but the point is actually, I think what you're saying is if you're doing it well, you actually are kind of saying no to some of the market. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What is we're in the realm here of talking about being bold and taking that stance. What is the process from your eyes in figuring out what that stance is and then being able to build content off of it?
So all begins with your positioning in the market, right? So you have your positioning. Then the next step would be your strategic narrative, which I think is really important for companies to get right. There's a ton of different approaches to it. I've seen it executed in several different ways. I've worked with clients that have worked with several different types of positioning and strategic narrative agencies. So there's definitely lots of ways to do it. And what I have found extremely valuable is whether you have a strategic narrative that is, a deck or just one slide, like one really compelling slide, you have to take that and turn it into some sort of story. So some sort of text-based story that your team, your marketing team and your sales team and your customer-facing teams can rally around, pull from, and you have this story that you can inject into all of your collateral, all of your messaging, so that you have this red thread that connects all of your content. So it's not like, I'm this live chat company and I'm going to write about the benefits of live chat and the examples of live chat. And I'm just going to, hire some Joe Schmo agency who's going to do some Google research and put up an article or use AI. Like, that's generic. So when you have your strategic narrative, like why your company exists, how you and your customers are going to march forward to this new and better existence together, take that, turn it into like a longer story, and that will help you have a point of view on different topics, right? So that point of view is where you have your differentiation.
Can you give an example of like what is a good point of view versus a bad, or maybe almost like a non-existent point of view?
So I would say it really depends, So on like a really simple basis, one of my favorite creators who's a service-based provider, he has kind of this big idea, which is hourly billing is nuts. So he has products and services that speak to people who have been billing by the hour. And his whole big idea is like, that's insane. Like, why would you do that? It's so much better to do value-based pricing. Mm-hmm. So what he's doing is he's moving people in their thinking to this new and better way and inspiring them to take action and rethink the way they always did things. And so all of his content and courses and products and services are kind of educating people, inspiring people, getting people to think about this topic in a new way. And it all stems from that one big idea, which is very small and very boiled down, but it's fuel for so much different opportunities. So you could start with something as simple as a big idea, boil it a bit out to incorporate your product and your services and, why your customers need to care about this. And then as you talk about various topics, like let's say, for example, if that's me and my big idea is that hourly billing is nuts, maybe one of the topical areas that I want to own and be an expert on, maybe it's proposals, because people that are hourly billing are probably sending proposals. So I want to have a ton of content about proposals. Well, okay, so how does my big idea and my strategic narrative inform my point of view on proposals? Now imagine if I hire an agency and I'm like, here is our point of view. I'm not going to necessarily give an agency my strategic narrative, but I'm definitely going to give them this story that I've created, my point of view on this topic, and I'm going to empower them to create content that's different than the rest of the content that's out there on proposals.
The other side of that would be the bad or the non-existent point of view, which I think a lot of companies fall into this trap. You don't need to necessarily like call out a specific company, but what does, that non-existent or bad point of view kind of look or sound like?
It sounds like, what is live chat? And then you go to the article and it's like, today in today's digital landscape, customers want to be able to speak to someone at your organization. And then there's some sort of generic study or, data point from a study that was put out 5 years ago. It's like, according to HubSpot's research, the average consumer, blah, 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 blah. And then you read this article and now you're like, okay, I know what live chat is. Cool. But did that inspire me? Did that make me feel any sort of way? Did that do anything for that company? Am I going to remember that website or that brand? Was there anything different? I would say no. And that's what I mean when companies don't have like a unique point of view or anything unique to say. And that's when content feels really generic. Speaking of generic, one other thought I wanted to add, and this is a personal learning, and I think something that most people would go through as kind of like a trajectory to their understanding of what generic means. So initially, when I would think of generic content, I would think that there were two ways of differentiating, and that would be through voice, right? So generic content all sounds the same. It sounds like something ChatGPT would spit out with, little editing. So I thought there was voice. So if you had like a really edgy or bold tone of voice, that is one way you could differentiate yourself. And the other was format, right? So voice and format. And I figured, hey, if you have this message you want to deliver and you deliver it not via a blog post, but via an unexpected format, like a documentary or a children's book on an adult topic, there's lots of like unique formats. I would say, oh, well, that's not generic. While those things are true, it's also true that you can have the boldest voice and you can have the most unconventional container for your message, but you can still be generic if that message could be said by all of your competitors. So if your competitor could put out the exact same children's book or make that exact same documentary with all the same information inside the container, it's still generic, right? So if you have to focus on only one thing, and whether it's voice or whether it's the container, the format, or whether it's the actual message, I would focus first on the actual message. Then you can always refine your voice. Then you can always refine your containers and experiment. And by the end, you're going to have something like really unique and really bold.
I want to go further on that in just a minute. Before I do, everything we've been talking about today so far has been really around this idea of the point of view, having the stance, the opinion. And if you're building your company, obviously that point of view, that stance has to drive back to a solid product that's going to uphold the promise that you delivered up front through the content.
Yep.
Now, if you are a B2B SaaS trying to get off the ground, trying to get into market, if you are a consumer app, if you are anything in between, if you are a Web3 company even, you need to make sure the software is up to par. And if you are not the developer yourself, you need to have a good partner. And that's where Akeva comes in. Akeva is the GOAT of software development. The reality is I personally have seen too many startups get screwed over by offshore or budget dev shops. These are the providers that take orders, and that's kind of where they stop. They're order takers and they do the bare minimum, which often means on the founder side, you end up having software that has gaping holes in it, like literally like glaring errors and vulnerabilities, being forced to pay hidden release fees to claim ownership of your code, and so much more. The other side is Akeva. They actually build strategically for scale from day one. They help you make great product decisions along the way, and they give you full ownership of your code by default. And that's something that most companies out there do not do. They've got a killer offer for you. It's a You Call It code review. What's a You Call It code review? You remember back in college, you might be out on like a Wednesday night and it would be like the special at the bar was $1 You Call It's. Well, those $1 You Call It's were probably for a shot of liquor on the lowest shelf at the bar. Akeva's You Call It is much better than that. Reach out to them. If you qualify, they will review the most critical parts of your code so you can see exactly what your tech needs to launch or to scale. And they will do this, not even for $1, but they'll do this completely for free. And then you call it from there. So You Call It means, do you want to take that knowledge and then handle things on your own? You call it. Do you want to get Akeva's dev help from there? You call it. Do you want to get Akeva's advice, but then take it to a different dev shop? You call it. It's the best offer I've ever seen in software development. It's a You Call It code review. Are you ready for a You Call It code review? And if you're ready to get goated, learn more at akeva.io. That's akava.io, akeva.io, and tell them Startup Hype Man sent you. Today on the Goat to Market show, we're with Erin Balsa from the House of Bold talking about content that drives leads. Now, before the break there, Erin, you were kind of talking about like the generic sort of content out there and how there's not much of a point of view behind it. Like, what is live chat? And you're just educating people. So is the idea that every piece of content you put out has to have an opinion?
I don't know that opinion is the word I would use. I think I would default to point of view, right? Because a point of view is a little stronger than an opinion. I might have an opinion that, pineapples are gross, but like that's not something I passionately believe. It's just like an opinion. So I think, opinions are a little too weak. I think a point of view is something that you vehemently believe in and you can defend, and you have built your business kind of around this point of view, and you believe that it's a point of view worth solving. So I think it's a bit stronger than an opinion. And you see a lot of opinions on LinkedIn, right? But people necessarily haven't put a lot of time, effort, thought into these opinions, just like I do it. We all do it, right? Wake up today. I had this idea. I'm like, hey, I'm going to share this. This is an opinion. It doesn't mean that, that is going to be the be all end all for my content strategy. That's just me sharing some thoughts and some opinions. And that's okay too, especially on social where people are kind of expecting to have a little bit of that real person and their personality. So I think that there are a place for opinions, but I think that in terms of like what I'm talking about today, I'm talking about a point of view.
Yeah. Let's talk about how content and a content strategy fits within like the larger flow of a company, especially as they're, let's call it, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I think what a lot of, particularly in sales-led organizations, sales-led startups, what I see a lot of, I work on a lot of pitch decks, so I know this firsthand from seeing what their go-to-market strategy is, and it's like, okay, we're gonna raise this money so we can hire 2 SDRs to generate leads for us, and then kind of like as a full stop right there. I've kind of long held the belief that it's a lot harder. You might be able to generate the meeting, but it's a lot harder to make the sale if there's no air coverage around what the sales team is doing. So you might have, let's say, 2 SDRs and an AE, or let's say 4 SDRs and 2 AEs. And the AE maybe does a good job selling it, but there's not much they can point to beyond just the conversation they're having in that moment with the prospect. Mm-hmm. How does a content strategy layer in with what the sales team is doing?
Great question. So I like to think that content strategy should always begin with the business goals. And it's also really important for businesses to, as early as they can, define what they mean by different stages in the funnel, right? So how are you defining what a marketing lead is? How are you defining what a MQL is? How are you identifying how that then turns into a sales opportunity, right? So it's really important. That's something that some people don't do right away. They don't have clear definitions. It creates a lot of confusion. It could also create a lot of confusion for the person on the marketing team who's trying to create content, because like, what's their goal, right? So if the goal is right now, content's really focused on, getting people that are in our world to become a lead. And we're defining an ML as someone who actually raised their hand to talk to sales. That is our definition of what a lead is. There's all different definitions for what that is, right? But I think it's important to start there. And if our goal is really to help beyond that point, so now we want to really help drive action so that we're enabling the sales team to take that opportunity and convert it to a customer, a paying customer. That's a whole different ballgame. And so a content strategy wouldn't just be like, oh, we're going to create blogs on this topic, because why? Like, what are you trying to do at the end of the day? It would say, well, we're really focused this quarter on enabling our sales team. We're not worried about SEO at this point. We have SDRs doing outreach. We're getting meetings. We really want to focus on enabling, our sales reps, our AEs to have better conversations. The content strategy could be really heavy on, bottom of the funnel content, could be really heavy on sales enablement, customer stories, and not just generic customer stories, but you might do some tailored customer stories for the industries and the use cases and the personas that your sales team is having these conversations with. So there's a lot of different ways that the content strategy can help there. And there's never like a one size fits all. You're not just like, oh, we're going to blog and like share it on social media. That's not a content strategy. That's just kind of winging it.
Let's cover the distribution side. So you can create good content, and let's say it's a blog post or something like that, and nobody can see it. And I'll tell you this, I see a lot of Well, there's a couple layers of it that I think are wrong. It's not just the distribution, but I'll see a lot of like from the company LinkedIn page, like the company account, it will be like, check out our new white paper on, best practices for cybersecurity management. And like, the two people who like it are the two people who work at the company.
Yes.
What is an effective, well, have you seen stuff like that before? What's your
Oh,
take
yeah.
on it? And
I
what's
used to do
effective?
that. I used to do that. Everyone did, I think, at one point, right? So when your company started to have a presence on LinkedIn years back, they were like, hey, everyone, like we have this Slack channel. We're going to share our new content. We want everyone to like the post, All right. I did that. I think we all did that at one point. It's very common. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you don't necessarily you're trying to be helpful, right? You're trying to help your company. You're trying to help your content team. So I think it's awesome that you're even caring enough to give that post a like. That's great. But like, if you want to see more results, let's take it a step further. Let's start adding our own personal story to frame this content piece. That's like the lightest lift you could possibly have. Your company put out this white paper. Cool. Why should people care? Why do you care? How is this relevant in your experience? Tell that story, and then people are going to be far more likely to want to look at that white paper. No one wants to look at it if it's like, we created a white paper, yay. Like, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Like, make people care.
So then how do we actually like get this thing out there, right? Like you can throw it on your LinkedIn page. Is that enough? What are the channels and how do you effectively use these channels?
So I wouldn't be able to say what are the channels without knowing your specific company, details. Like it's kind of like, yeah, LinkedIn's a great fit for a lot of B2B. So probably LinkedIn, but I can't say it definitively because I don't know. Every company is different. But, we're thinking about distribution in terms of social. Social is a great vehicle for distribution. And company pages, yeah, that's fine. Of course, you want to have some sort of presence, probably. But what you really want to do is get people within the company and friends of the company who happen to be working for or with clients and your ICP. You want them to help you distribute the content and not just here's this company's white paper, but with personal stories, right? So that people actually care. That is one way to really use social media to your advantage. But thinking about distribution happens long before you even think about like social media. So I think about distribution in terms of how are people going to even consume the content? Because some people you want to drive to your website. You need some content on your website most of the time in many cases. But you need to also think about email, co-marketing, events, like depends on what kind of activities your company does, depends on where you're able to connect with the right people. A lot of that's events. So maybe you are creating this research report, survey-based report, which is something that I help almost all my clients do. You are investing money and time and energy into creating this report that shares data on the industry or some sort of topic that's relevant to your audience. And then you can share it on social. You can, run some ads, some retargeting ads, la-di-da. But there's so many other things you can do, right? So when I build content strategies where there is a report that's kind of the center of the campaign, the entire repurposing motion thinks about how it's going to get into people's hands. So there might be a path where we know we're going to do retargeting ads, and we know that the specific data point is really interesting to a certain persona or a certain use case. So we're going to maybe spin up a one sheet or a template, and we're going to, put some paid spend behind that. And that's going to get people into our funnel. So maybe those people never read the full report, but maybe that report enabled us to create this template for the specific persona or use case. There's just like so many different examples. And I think one of the best examples is, everybody's speaking at industry conferences. People are presenting or hosting dinners at trade shows. And that's a really great way to distribute your content. Of course, you're not going to stand there and hand out, a stapled 30-page PDF report, but there's a lot of ways where you can distribute your message. Again, content marketing, people like to think the phrase content marketing means writing blog posts to get found in search. No, at its core, content marketing means idea marketing. It's finding the right container through which you can distribute your idea. and get it in the hands of the right people. And that might be a speaking deck. Maybe you create your report, you take some of the most interesting insights that are tailored and relevant to the people who will be in the seats at a specific conference, and you use the data to make your storytelling stronger, to make your presentation more memorable and impactful. So there's a million ways of distributing content outside what people typically think about when they first start learning about content.
I really like that, and I have not heard it said that way before. For finding the right container through which you can communicate your idea. One of the speaking of these distribution channels and containers, one of the channels I've found to be particularly useful for Startup Hype Man is putting a point of view out and putting content out through a newsletter. I use ActiveCampaign. For anyone listening, you can use the show notes and get a free 2-week trial of ActiveCampaign. It's been very easy to set up not even individual emails, but also some automation sequences as well, and kind of create a content ecosystem around different assets. So one of my biggest lead drivers, actually, I would say the biggest lead driver, is workshops and webinars. And what I'll do is I'll use email as a platform I would say I'm rarely directly selling through a newsletter. The newsletter is used to push you to another asset. So a lot of times it is the newsletter is going to promote the webinar or workshop that I'm doing. And then that creates, a funnel, if you will. People attend that workshop, and then that becomes a asset that from there there's inbound directly off of that, or there is a automated follow-up sequence that I run afterwards that then drives bookings after that. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I've always been sort of specific about and intentional about is how the event is marketed. What I've noticed is more effective is if you have an event coming up, and let's say you're speaking at that event, not just saying, hey, everyone, I'm speaking at such and such on this date, whether it's in person or virtual, whatever. But that's the standard way I've seen people going about it. And I did it for a long time too. And then this shift that I made that I saw was more effective was writing the newsletter, writing the post, whatever it might be, kind of as if you were just giving someone, what's something you're probably going to talk about in that event? Mm-hmm. And making a post, just giving people advice about that thing and being like, and by the way, I'm covering this and a whole lot more tomorrow at noon in my workshop on this.
Yes.
That I've found to be, it's you treat it not as you're using it as an advertising mechanism to get people to the event, but you're not treating it like a flyer for the event.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You're giving away what they're actually they're getting a sneak peek at what they're going to get if they come, as opposed to not having a clue what they're going to get. And they're like, I'm not going to bother. I used the same strategy recently in my newsletter, actually, and on LinkedIn to help get people, to help drum up sales for my latest course, which I was selling on pre-sale. So what I was doing is I was giving sneak peeks. I showed a sneak peek of the template that is included as a content planning course. So a sneak peek of the template, I just shared it. My newsletter. I'm like, I don't care. Some people might not want to do that. They're like, well, why would they buy the course if you already showed them the template? I'm like, because that's just one aspect, right? A template is only going to get you so far if you don't know how to use the template. And another issue, I shared a good portion of one of the lessons. So I gave away probably 60% of a lesson. Again, people might say, I'm not going to give away that much of a course because who's going to buy the course? Well, people still bought the course because now they know, oh man, that was a great tip. I want to get more of that. Or wow, that template looks really helpful. I want to learn more. I want to get that template. So I would say the more you can give away, the easier it's going to be to get people to come to your webinar, to come to, whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do, whatever that next action is. Just give away as much as you can and they will come. I've always believed that.
Yes. Give away, don't guard. Part of this too is speaking to the situation and the problem set that your prospect is experiencing and not going so hard on promoting your product, but there's such a
Mhm.
leniency and default towards the content is just the content a company creates is just always promoting the product. How do you have any advice for like how to wean yourself off of that sort of mentality?
Yeah, I think that you have to understand what channels you're speaking in, how you're connecting with people, if they are in, in market to buy something or not, if they're just quickly scrolling through LinkedIn, just wanting to kill some time while they're, on the train to the office, whatever it is. Maybe you're not going to be like heavy, hey, here's my product, here are the features, here's this, like, because people aren't necessarily looking for that in that way in that moment. And not to mention, the best way to get people to buy your stuff is to build some awareness, build some credibility, get other people to mention your product, right? So that's one of the best ways to sell your product is just that snowball effect. So
Mm.
you can do that. You can build like raving fans with content by, teaching people things, helping people, getting this large group of people to become raving fans so that they're the ones talking about your product. They're the ones that are creating content about your brand or you or your product. And that is the real magic because that's way more trustworthy than you yourself being like, oh, my software is so amazing. It's, industry leading. It's blah, blah, blah. Like, no, but like today, I reached out to a buddy of mine who's another solopreneur. We're in a small Slack group together. I was like, "Hey, I really love your videos lately." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks. I've been using this tool." I instantly clicked, I instantly used it, made a video I liked, wanted to download the video, and guess what? Now I got to pay. But I might do it because it came through him. It wasn't like someone that worked at that company like, "Hey, we are the best. We have all this AI editing tools. Like, we're industry leading." And like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to fall for that. I want to actually hear it from my friends that I know and trust. So just using content to give away value, to connect with people so that these people think of you, you come top of mind, they want to refer you, they want to help spread the word about how amazing you are. And that's really the magic of content. It's not always about just talking about your product. Granted, there is a time and place to talk about your product, right? There sure is. But I would say some of what you're doing has to be product agnostic. It has to really speak, like you said, to the audience's challenges, pain points, etc. Because if I led, when I did this course launch just a couple of weeks ago, if I had led with, my course is amazing, it's the best course, it's like the only content planning system you'll ever need, that's bullshit. No, it's not. Like my
Mm-hmm.
process is just a process that you could try and you might like it and it might work for you, but it's not the only, it's not, the only option for you. That would be a lie. There's lots of different content planning methods based on who you are as a company, like what kind of content you want to create. There's all different types of processes. So rather, what I did was I led with people's challenges. I'm like, yo, are you sick of creating generic content? Do you feel like all of your content pieces are disjointed? Do you feel like your competitor could have done the same thing? Are you stressed out, constantly trying to figure out how to repurpose things after the fact? Are you asking product marketing to add the strategic narrative into your SEO blog posts? Like, this is stuff that's really going to resonate with the right people. They're going to say, hell yeah, that's me. It sucks. And guess what? Now my process, my course sounds very interesting, much more interesting than if I tried to shove it down their throats that, you got to adopt my process or, you're going to die. That's just not believable. You got to be credible.
It's an interesting sort of subtopic because there's a lot of this or die out there, which
Yeah.
I find a tough time. My personality, I feel like it's tough to pull it out. Like I have opinions and I have a point of view and I am pretty rooted in the stances that I have and can put that out there. But I also really struggle with because I don't know. My thing is I'm like I kind of always want to be challenged and like make sure what I have is up to snuff.
Yeah.
And I am open to other opinions and viewpoints, and so I struggle with that like that very hard line. This is the way, the only way, kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
there are plenty of people who do it, and it is effective.
Mm.
So it's I don't know. I find it. I don't know where I don't love that style, but I also know that it does work.
For certain people, not for all. Some people are very turned off by that style.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. If that fits who you are as a person or who you are as a company, go for it. Because some companies are a challenger brand, right? It's all about branding. Think about brand archetypes. If I am an everyman brand or I am, the sage brand, I'm not all about wanting to shove my way as the only way down your throat, right? Because I'm probably going to want to help to inspire you and to guide you and to help you find that there are different paths to success. And, of course, there's one that we believe in because that's where our product's going to help. But we also want to help everyone find their path to success, even if it's not with us. That might match who I am as a brand. But, there's the challenger brand. There is the outlaw brand. There's those more edgy, hard-hitting brands where that kind of approach makes complete sense. So I think that when you're seeing it work for some people, it might not be right for all. You can still have a point of view as a magician, as whatever your brand archetype is, you can still have a point of view for sure on what you think is a great way for people to do things or why they should leave their old way behind and start working toward this new way. It's just that your approach is going to be different. The delivery of your message is going to be different.
Let's hit our wrap up now. First off, Erin, where can our listeners find you? Where can they learn more about House of Bold?
Well, I'm active on LinkedIn and I'm the only Erin Balsa on LinkedIn. So thank God I married my husband and got rid of my generic maiden name. So you can always find me there. Happy to connect. I also have a website called houseofbold.com, and house is spelled Haus, House of Bold. And I have a newsletter called Leading Thoughts. So feel free to subscribe and we can stay in touch in all those different ways.
You mentioned a new course that's out as well. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I launched my second course. So what I'm trying to do over time is teach people kind of my entire system or way of thinking about content marketing via courses that are modular. So you could buy a course to learn how I do content planning, which is my latest course. You could buy a course to learn how I do research reports. So eventually I like to have this library of courses that are modular that all kind of complement each other and fit together. So the latest course is for anyone who's trying to move away from generic content, trying to plan more intentionally, reduce the chaos, and get the most out of their efforts. It's a content planning course for people that want to build topical authority that's not rooted in SEO, that really helps people to put the human first, not the search engines, and helps people to deliver original insights and incorporate their strategic narrative.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's now give our before I do that, who is one person you want to give a shout out to in your professional network who's been helpful to you?
Oh God, so many people have been helpful. I feel like I'm leaving out somebody, but the one that popped to mind is my friend Erica Schneider. She is awesome. We connected a few years ago. I just naturally gravitated toward her. We're both a little bit unconventional, a little bit casual, a little bit different than your typical marketing leader, but she's been so helpful and so generous with her time and friendship, and I'd love to give her a shout out.
Let's now give our top one or two lessons or takeaways from the conversation. The topic today was creating content that drives leads. I'll go first and I'll toss it to you. We covered a lot of really good stuff. The thing I'm going to come back to, which I mentioned in the moment, was something I had not heard put this way before, was this idea that you have to find the right container through which you can communicate your idea. And that comes back to the notion of your distribution strategy. Erin, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, content marketing isn't writing SEO blog posts. It's so much more than that. So a takeaway that I want people to think about, I think it's really important to not be afraid to have a point of view. People hear point of view and they instantly go to spiky point of view. I need to be an asshole. I need to be controversial. Like that doesn't feel right. That's not who I am as a person. That's not who we are as a brand. So I want people to know that you can tailor your point of view so that it fits you and so that it fits your brand. That said, you should never be too scared to have a point of view because your TAM is not everyone. There's always going to be people that don't like you. Even if you do try to sugarcoat it and be more vanilla and more generic, there are still people who are not going to like you. So just be you, have your point of view, own that, and deliver it in a way that's true to who you are as a person or as a brand.
My final question, which is how we end every episode of this show, fill in the blank. Erin, entrepreneurship is blank.
Freedom, joy, Freedom because you can take a day off if you need to without asking permission. Joy because you can choose your clients and choose your projects. But a challenge because you have to sell yourself. You have to continue reinventing yourself and keeping it fresh to keep driving attention and to stay relevant in a world where it's getting more and more competitive every day because people keep leaving their jobs to go freelance. So it's definitely, for me, it's a joy, but it's also a challenge to really stay relevant and to keep marketing yourself. So yeah, I love it. It's definitely cool.
Freedom and joy, but a challenge.
Yes.
She is Erin Balsa with the House of Bold. If you were listening to this, friends, and you were like, oh, I have a follow-up question for Erin, I'd really love to ask her. Maybe you were listening to this while you were at the gym or grocery shopping or one of those things, and you probably did not have a notepad next to you at that time. Guess what? You have an opportunity to ask follow-up questions to Erin because she's going to be joining our community, the Goat to Market Club, and doing an Ask Me Anything for the whole week. This episode, the whole first week, this episode is live. So you can hop into our community and you can ask her a follow-up question on content strategy. You can ask her about what to do with SEO as it relates to your overall strategy. You can ask her about how to integrate strategy with sales. You can ask her the question that I forgot to follow up on, which is her title of being Chief Picky Editor. Why did she choose that? You can ask that, or you can even ask her about her failed efforts at learning Portuguese. All of it is fair game and an Ask Me Anything going down in one place, and that is inside of the Goat to Market Club, our online founder and GTM leader community. It's totally free to join. You just hop in at startuphypeman.com/GTM-club, startuphypeman.com/GTM-club. Head in there. Erin will be hanging out the whole first week. This episode is live. Erin, thank you once again for joining today on the Goat to Market Show.
Thanks for having me.
That'll put a bow on this one. Before we head out of here, a couple quick housekeeping items. Number one, did you like what you heard? Well, give us a subscribe and a follow. Maybe share it with one friend who you think would find this valuable. Number two, remember that Ask Me Anything I told you about at the end of the episode? That goes down exclusively inside of Goat to Market Club, our online founder and startup community. And you can access it for free. Your membership is 100% free at startuphypeman.com/GTM-club. Number three, need pitch help? Startup Hype Man is your man. Whether it's a fundraising narrative or a go-to-market or category narrative, we've got you covered to make sure you have messaging that doesn't help you just go to market, but of course, what? Helps you become the GOAT to market. All right, we will see you next week here on the Goat to Market Show. Thank you for listening. And remember, why be a unicorn when you can be the GOAT?